comprehensive sustainability plan is based around transportation. In Burlington, transportation is the leading emitter of greenhouse gases. Efforts such as electric buses are being made to combat this. But how helpful is a fleet of electric buses if current ridership is projected to decrease and many people continue to use private and often single-rider transportation? It is essential that Burlington increases their ridership if they want to make a larger impact. I narrowed down 2 areas in which they could improve. These are improving the availability and efficiency of their bus routes and to regionally plan with surrounding townships. To demonstrate the importance of bus efficiency and availability, I'm going to take you on a trip around my hometown, which completely lacks a widespread public transportation system. And then I'll take you to a neighboring town with a not-so-great public transportation system. I live in the suburbs, so obviously things are going to be a little more extreme because we aren't built to be densely populated. But the core ideas remain. You may notice on the first half of the trip the endless number of cars and the complete lack of any pedestrians, even in the areas surrounding shopping centers. Despite being heavily frequented by shoppers, there is no public transportation system here. Towards the end of the video, you will see a more densely populated town, which has a public transportation system and is arguably more walkable. So why are there still so many single riders there? Well, there are many reasons, but the 2 I will mention are a lack of regional planning and inefficient wait times. Missed your bus? Well, guess what? You'll have to wait 30 minutes for the next one. During peak traffic, it takes me between 15 and 20 minutes to get from my home to the mall. That's less time than the wait. Another reason is because many of these people are passing through to neighboring towns. A lack of regional planning makes these towns inaccessible without a car. The golden rule is a 10-minute walk between public transportation and your destination, but I can assure you that is not the case with the systems here. So how does this all apply to Burlington? Well, you can see how a lack of public transportation and an inefficient transportation system leads to private transportation. Recently, Green Mountain Transit, or GMT, is planning on making service cuts and bringing back fares because they are projected to have a $3 million deficit, and only $2 million if things go their way. Since COVID-19, fares have been free, and the Vermont Agency of Transportation states that if fares rise, then 15% of ridership is projected to be lost. Those who solely rely on buses to get to work will likely remain, but that 15% is going to be optional riders, which are really the crowd we are trying to attract. We want people to ride the bus because it is convenient to get around town. On top of increased fares, service cuts will increasingly make the GMT a less preferred option. Already, depending on the route, wait times can be up to 30 minutes in Burlington, while 15 minutes is the sweet spot to attract riders. The GMT will continue to lose riders if it becomes more unavailable and inefficient. So how can the GMT get the funds it needs to not only bring itself back to its initial state, but also improve? Well, it's not a lack of income ideas. They have many already based on taxing. It's more a matter of political support. Currently, the GMT relies heavily on state funding, so they need politicians to help them. One interesting case study is that of Hong Kong. The railway system in Hong Kong is partially privatized, with the government as its largest stakeholder. Fares alone cover their operational costs, which is in part due to the fact that 90% of passenger trips are made via public transportation. But money for maintenance and innovation comes from their railway property model. Essentially, the MTR, which is their railway system, works with developers to develop around their major stations, providing places where people want to go. The government gives the MTR development rights, and the developers share the profits with the railway system. Other case studies, such as in San Francisco and North Carolina, were community-based, relying on the communities to make their voices heard so that the government and stakeholders were more likely to provide funding. In North Carolina, a coalition group of transit riders and organization leaders was used to create public transportation policy to extend hours. And in San Francisco, public transportation policy had community engagement through ballot initiatives. These initiatives granted the public transportation system the ability to get funding from tax on the sale of goods. This provided the transportation system with a source of funding other than the government grants and fares. Now let's talk about regional planning. Burlington gets a lot of traffic coming from neighboring towns. So how can they work with these towns to encourage residents to use public transportation? In Santa Maria, the city started providing small buses to the suburbs. Why small buses? The suburbs are less densely populated, so a conventional bus would likely have comparatively low ridership, heightening the deficit from operational costs. These microbuses in Santa Maria provide suburban people with a fixed route that frequents every 15 minutes to locations in shopping centers, busy areas, and community centers. It also has an on-demand curb-to-curb service during off-peak hours. That Trader Joe's, the one right by UVM, with a parking lot that is constantly packed? Well, imagine the congestion if Burlington worked with neighboring towns to provide shuttle services. Overall, I recommend a 5-year adaptable plan. At the end of the 5 years, the plan should be reassessed and, if necessary, changed and extended. I do not think a bus property model is the key in Burlington because the city relies on its small town charm, and inviting rapid development could threaten that. That idea was also done in a place where the city is essentially a closed community, so people heavily rely on public transportation, hence why operational costs are easily covered. Instead, I recommend a community-based approach to achieving policy and gaining funding from stakeholders and the government. We cannot use ballot initiatives like in San Francisco, but the case study still exemplifies how community effort can create a dramatic change. This funding can then be applied to create a regional system of microbuses and improving conventional bus efficiency and availability within Burlington. In conclusion, it is essential that the City of Burlington, its people, and GMT work together to improve the efficiency and availability of public transportation systems so that people rely less on private vehicles to travel within Burlington and its neighboring towns. With adequate funding, the GMT can bring back and hopefully increase service to attract more riders. Other infrastructure, such as bus lanes, will improve this efficiency, but for now, the goal is to find funding.